how many 20 to 30 year olds say that they're dreaming about being able to retire at 65, right? It just doesn't happen. 20 and 30 year olds are dreaming about being able to retire in their 40s or their 50s. But yet when you look at people that are 50 and older, when do we expect to be able to retire? And it's well into our 60s. In fact, there was a recent survey that was done, and 20 to 40 year olds think that they're going to be able to retire at 59. 40 to 55 year olds think they'll be able to retire at 60, and people 55 plus think they'll be able to retire at 68. So, what's going on here? The reality is less than 1% of America actually gets to retire at 50 to 55. And then the numbers start going up from there. But why do so few of us get to retire at 50 to 55? And I think there's two main reasons for that. And the first is a good reason. And the good reason here, let's go for a walk. I think the good reason that people wait to retire is because they love their job. And if you really love your job, the truth is you're very, very fortunate. Surveys where people are anonymous, where they ask people, do you love your job? Only 20% of Americans say that they love their job. And if you're in that 20%, congratulations, honestly. You can't ask for anything better than to be able to make a fair living doing something that you love. But for a lot of us, we're kind of struggling with, maybe we've been doing what we've been doing for a long time and we think maybe it's ready for time for a change, or we want the next chapter in our lives, or we're looking at our health and saying, I'm not getting any younger. Regular viewers of my channel know that I say this often: if you're 60 years old, you likely have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy and active time. That's not a lot of time, so you want to use it thoughtfully, right? 1,000 weeks, just think about it. 1,000 weeks, that's 20 years, which is, sufficient time. But when you think about how fast the last 20 years flew by, that the next 20 years is going to fly by just as quickly. So that's the first reason, is people love their job. The one thing I would caution you on is, if you say that you love your job, ask yourself this question just to be sure. If you won $100 million in the lottery tomorrow, would you still be going to work a year from now? And I think, well over 90% of us that say that we love our jobs probably would not be going to work a year from now. Now, people like Warren Buffett, he's one of the wealthiest guys in the world. And he doesn't need to win $100 million because he's already done quite well for himself. But he still enjoys working. He still skips to work every day and loves his job. So the number one reason people are pushing back their retirement, and the positive one, and when I say number one, not the most common, just the first one that I'm speaking about, is that people love their jobs. And again, I think that's great. Okay, the second one, which I think is much more common, is people just don't think that they've saved enough money. They're concerned that they may run out of money during retirement, and none of us want that to happen to us. So, unfortunately, the latest savings in the United States showed 4.6% savings rate. And if they have studies that go back to 1959 on this, and since 1959, the average savings rate's been just under 9%, 8.9%. So, Americans are saving less, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Certainly housing has gotten more expensive for a lot of us, and those of us that have kids and are paying for our kids' college education, or maybe we needed student loans for our college education, or going to trade school, whatever it was that allowed us to level up our skill set and be able to make a living. That's gotten a lot more expensive, unfortunately. But that's only part of it. During the pandemic, when there wasn't a lot for us to do, that savings rate went from 4.6% to 20. And many households were reporting that they were saving a third. And so, that gives you a feel of what the differences are between your wants and your needs, right? During the pandemic, we couldn't do our wants, right? It was all just our needs. And so looking at how we're spending our money, and none of this is prescriptive. It's your money. You worked hard for it. God bless. Spend it however you want. But just make sure that you're saving enough for tomorrow, right? Part of it is consuming and providing for today you, and part of it is providing for tomorrow you. And you just want to make sure that you're splitting those two and doing a good job on it. So, when I was being brought up, my parents taught me save 10%. You save 10% of what you make and you're going to be fine. But those were the days where company pensions were much more common. So between the company pension and Social Security and saving 10%, yeah, that was probably about the right number. But in today's world, so few of us have a pension. And I think 10%, unfortunately, I wish it was enough, but I don't think for most of it's going to be. I think we need to be closer to 20 or 25%. And you are where you are right now. And you just do the very best that you can. Now, if your company offers matching in their 401k or a 403b plan, that's free money up until the match. So they may say, if you put in 5%, we'll put in 3% or something like that. Really try to do what you can to get that money in, because that's, there's not many guaranteed returns. Now, it's important to remember that oftentimes there's a vesting schedule associated with that. So if you don't think you're going to be at your current company in total until past the vesting schedule, which is typically 3 or 4 years, then it's really not free money. But at least you saved whatever you put into it. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is really thinking through, what are your other major expenses? Saving for your kids' college expense is a big one. And they have student loans. They don't have loans for retirement. So, depending on what your child wants to study, maybe studying at a state school or doing the first 2 years at a community college. I think the community colleges are really an underrated resource for a lot of us. And like one of my daughters, my youngest daughter, she took her senior year of high school at the community college, right? She had to take English, she had to take math, she had to take sciences anyways. And the high school had to deal with the local community college where they actually took college level classes. And that can be a great way. A lot of her classmates were able to graduate in 3 years instead of 4, save that extra expense. So we've got just the fact that housing is more expensive. And then we also have the fact that college is more expensive. And the last thing is, people are buying new cars and buying them pretty frequently. And that can be an expensive habit to get into. And personally, I think the least sacrificial way to start saving more money is to drive a car that's a couple years old, something that's still good, something that's still dependable, but something that's not going to give you the average car payment's $700 a month. And there's plenty of people, about 10% of Americans have a car payment that's $1,000 a month. So, and along these lines, so this is, what the number one killer is of early retirement. And I think it's also important to think about, how much is enough, right? The thumbnail on this video said more. And I think more can be a negative for us. And so along the lines of more, I've got this video here that talks about why it's important to look poor. In order to be rich, why do many rich people not look like they're rich? So if you're interested in that, give this video a watch. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.